There are a million and one officially licensed anime games. You've got your 20 different arena fighters just vaguely telling the story of the anime. But most of them end up being pretty hollow or at worst, Jump Force. However, unattached to all the Shonen Jump video games lies one franchise with 8 games at the time of writing. Birthed from one of the most popular anime of all time, Sword Art Online lends itself incredibly well to becoming a video game franchise, considering it already is one in universe. Just pick a locale and make a video game out of it. How hard can it be? Sword Art Online Lost Song tries to take the world of Alfheim Online and make it into a video game that feels like the predecessor to the combat of every movement-based gacha game, except that there's one cool detail that draws from the world it's based on. In SAO Lost Song, you can fly. And for what it's worth, this is the biggest selling point of the game, and it mostly delivers. The first time you experience this, is a special type of bliss. The freedom to glide around the world, giving an extra dimension to exist in. It's a shame that the rest of the game is so immensely frustrating. Sword Art Online Lost Song has the bones of a very good game, but somehow manages to hide all of that in side content or into the last dungeon of the game. Before we get to that though, I have two things I want to touch on. One is very silly but inoffensive, and the other is very silly but dumb. Every character in SAO Lost Song has a variety of costumes to wear throughout your time roaming the various zones. They all have their ALO outfits, and if they have an original outfit, they'll get that too. However, this was 2017, so every female character also has a very plain bikini option, and to get even spicier, just a bath towel outfit. When I booted up the game, both of these outfits were unlocked. They don't provide any special buffs or anything, it is purely just if you want to spend your gameplay experience looking at side characters in bikinis, because I know no one in this game is picking Klein or Aegil, and they also don't have those outfits at all. But it is very funny because you know that no one is picking them, and the developers know that too. Because why would you pick Klein and Aegil when you can pick Asuna in a bath towel? Or if you're weird, Lifa in a bath towel. There are also several little side events in this game where you get to see the characters in said bath towels or other revealing clothes, but drawn this time. I almost titled this video the most cliche anime game, but for some reason all of those events just disappear by the halfway point. It's a deeply silly quirk of the game, but for an SAO game where basically every female character loves Kirito, it's hardly surprising this is there at all. However, there are some female characters in the game that don't love Kirito. They exist in the character creator that barely exists in SAO Lost Song. For context, I picked up SAO Lost Song because I wanted to make a character in the style of Alfheim Online. I think it's a cool world and I wanted to try it out. The character creator was very much a big appeal of the game to me. But in a foolish act, I didn't look up any information on how deep the character creation goes. Because, like most people, when I see character creator, I think of every other game where you can make some really deep customization and have fun with it all. And when I finally opened the menu in SAO Lost Song to do the character creation, my jaw dropped because I had just witnessed the worst character creator I have ever seen. Every race is gender locked and has 2 options to choose from that add a minimal amount of difference to the characters themselves. I expected the game to have some semblance of a character creator like every other game that advertises one. I expected to be able to customize my character to look how I wanted, but I was not given that luxury. I should probably be much more annoyed about this, but honestly after beating the game, it's kind of just funny to me how awful it is. It really doesn't need to be in the game at all, but someone put in the time and effort to add one and they advertised it, and it just sucks. But I spent my whole game with a custom character because it was much funnier than using any one of Kirito's love interests. But I did keep Leaf on the team because I have nostalgia for her, and I like her design. I was 14 when I first watched the show, and it became my identity for several years, so the nostalgia is doing a lot of work here. The character creator is dumb and bad, but it's at least so incompetent that I can move on from it quickly. The main gameplay loop of SAO Lost Song, however, is unfortunately not so lucky. There are the bones of a good game, but they are bogged down by 2 specific things that all revolve around the various dungeons in the game. The combat of SAO Lost Song is worth mentioning because it feels like playing every action RPG release nowadays where I spend half the time mashing right click to dodge while spamming Star Wars Stream wherever I can. It's very simple, but it's inoffensive, and the addition of flight makes combat feel interesting whenever they let you into an aerial battle. The addition of height into boss fights makes them a lot more fun than other boss fights where you're just stuck to the ground playing a normal action RPG. For a game with the main selling point being flight, the dungeons almost exclusively barring flight is such a waste. But that's not even the worst part of the dungeon. SAO Lost Song will be fighting the same 3 or 4 bosses for the entire game. The big dragons, hydras, beasts, etc. will get old after their second encounters, but that's just the beginning of them. And this bland repetition would hurt more if it wasn't so frustrating. The problem with SAO Lost Song isn't that it reuses the same boss a million times, it's that it has some genuinely cool Norse god themed bosses that are only seen in character side quests or the last dungeon of the game. I could forget about SAO Lost Song a whole lot quicker if the bosses were all just these boring dragons, hydras, etc. But instead they bring out Mecha Odin, and I'm impressed at how cool this boss looks, and then I'm left wondering, why the hell aren't these the main story bosses? The main world bosses themselves aren't that bad, but they look infinitely less cool than every single Norse god-themed boss that you fight exactly one time, if that. The bosses themselves aren't that hard to fight, but they look so cool that I don't care. But if you only do main story content, you never know about this aspect of gameplay until 7 is suddenly a fake persona. And that brings me to the story, which is rough, but that's entirely expected for a spin-off game with an original story. 99% of the story is just the main group clearing the new content area with the vague hints of plot progression until suddenly the final dungeon arrives and everything is dumped out onto the floor to look at. You learn the backstory of Rain, who's just kind of there the whole game. You have your duel with Sumeragi, who feels like such a waste of a fight, but his whole purpose is, I guess, to just give 7 power later. They really build up this guy that can go toe-to-toe with the best players in the game, and yet I felt no challenge at all facing him. I had a harder time with the Asuna side quest where you just redo the entire Mother's Rosario arc, complete with the Asuna Yuki duel. That was probably the best use of the duel in the game, but on all of this, the stakes of Lost Song aren't allowed to get that high since it's just a filler game. You can't do much of anything, but you could do a little more than just 7 wants to make an AI hive mind out of idol fans, but that backfires and suddenly she's consumed and transforms into a mecha angel. It's all very out of left field, but is fine enough because her design is cool. This leads me to how I would improve this game because I think all of the pieces are there. The game has cool aspects, but they're tethered to the wrong spots. Things like the combat and flight I think just need another game or a studio with more development time to really refine into something truly special. The flight is good, but it can be a bit clunky at times, especially with descending while not in the pure flight mode. The combat is fine, but definitely could be improved with the more modern innovations of action RPGs. However, for the story I have more radical ideas. First, integrate more of the mech angel aesthetic of the Norse gods into the main story. I've played Fire Emblem Heroes, I know you've got more guys you can pull from. You can make the smaller bosses or side quest bosses named after some smaller Norse aspects, get named after the rivers or various other beings that exist. But the gods should have been saved for the main world bosses. Thor, Loki, Odin, etc. should be bosses required to beat the main hub worlds, not seen on the side quest. They're big enough and have cool enough designs to warrant a bigger place in the narrative, not being relegated to side bosses you can just choose not to interact with. Just doing that would enhance the world so much more and also have much cooler bosses than the big head with floating hands that spin, which is somehow one of the more original bosses in the game. As a side note, I love having my main exposure to some real-life mythology or historical figures be from video games. It's so funny playing Lost Song and seeing Loki and being like, wait, you aren't a hot anime girl? So shout out to Fire Emblem Heroes for teaching me more about Norse mythology than real life, so that all of my mental images of the gods there are anime women and not whatever they actually look like in ancient texts. At the core of SAO Lost Song is an officially licensed anime game meant to make a quick buck from the fans who wanted an SAO video game to play. And you get a bit above the quality you would expect from a game of that moniker, except in one area. The music of Sword Art Online Lost Song is incredible. The music in the first area had me vibing so hard, and so many of the other areas' themes are just a joy to listen to. Like, come on, just listen to this while flying about. I know I already did this bit earlier in the video, but it's so good that I'm doing it twice. As I finished SAO Lost Song, I was frustrated, but over the course of the roughly 20-hour game, I never felt awful playing it. It's a simple game that could definitely be a lot better than it is if it was given the time to be fleshed out or refined even a little bit more. But as it stands, I still enjoyed playing SAO Lost Song, even if it does make me really frustrated of how it could be so much better with only a few changes. There is good in this game, it is just hidden off to the side for you to find while flirting with every single one of Kirito's love interests. So in reality, Sword Art Online Lost Song is just the true Sword Art Online experience.